Good afternoon and welcome to our section of the Positively Empowered Kids International Families Day. And what a fantastic day it's been, and there's been so much to watch. So, I hope you've still got a little bit of energy left to spend a few minutes with Abigail and I. So I'm Amanda Peddle, and I wrote the story of Tam's journey, and this is my daughter Abigail, and she is part of our graphics team. So she helps make the colour pop out of the book nicely. So we've got someone that draws the pictures, and they start out a little bit like that, like a plain drawing, and then we've got someone else that colours the basics in, and then Abigail puts all the shade in and the light and the dark, so that makes the pictures pop a little bit. And Abigail is my daughter, as I said. She also has some diagnosis, and if you don't know what that is a posh name for some conditions that have made school and life a little bit tricky for her. She has ADHD and she has autism, and she also has lots of sensory processing issues around too much light and too much noise, and she has a condition called fibromyalgia as well, which is it's a big grown-up work for being sensitive to pain. So life can be a bit tough, but the last 20 years has been a big learning curve for both Abigail and I, as practitioner, as mummy, as child, as growing up woman, and my work with children over the last 20 years has taught us a lot. Being a mummy has taught me some more. So as a family, and with some very close friends of ours who also have lots of their own issues, we've come up with a story based around some of the work that I do, and it's called Tam's Journey. Now, this is a story about a little boy called Tam, and he gets a bit cross, and sometimes he behaves in ways that he's not entirely comfortable with. So I'm going to go through the book with you a little bit and show you some of the pictures and explain a little bit of the science parts that we like, that have helped us and helped lots of children in our work. So I'm going to chat, and Abigail's going to show you some of the images as we go along. So this is Tam, and Tam's just a normal little boy. He has lots of big feels and big emotions, and sometimes he gets himself in a bit of a tizzy. Yeah. And so this book's about the one day where he got himself in such a tizzy that his mum said, off you go and calm down. All right, so that magic phrase, calm down. So Tam's really cross by this because he doesn't actually know what calm down means, and that makes him a bit crosser because everybody expects him to know what calm down means, and so because he can't calm down and he doesn't know what it means, and there clearly are people that do know how to calm down, so he's very cross. He's cross with mum, he's cross with the people that can calm down, and he's cross with himself because he doesn't know what it means. So he already felt bad, and now he feels much worse because the feels have got bigger. Next. So he's so busy being cross that he runs into a tree. Look, there's his knees. He's fallen down and he's banged into a big almond tree, and the almonds are flickering down and falling all around him, and he's just irritated him some more. So while he's feeling very cross and angry, he hears some funny noises in the trees, and they go on for quite a little while. And then this little lady pops up, and her name's Hetty. And she says, "What on earth's the matter? Why are you so very cross?" She doesn't tell him off. She just sits with him, and she just gives him a minute to calm down and think about why he was so cross, because no one had asked him why he was in that mood. He was just told to calm down. So this was the first time anyone had ever asked him why and what was going on. So what Hetty did is that she offered to explain to him a little bit of science around how the brain and the body works, because actually there's a lot of science in this, and it's not so much that we're not good at things or we can't do things or we're not very good because we get big feels. It's that the science in our body is trying to do something. Many years ago, when we were early cavemen, we had a very important part of the brain that kept us safe, and it gets a bit busy nowadays and it interferes a little bit. Okay. But for good reason, because this important part of the brain, and its posh name is the amygdala. There's lots of other parts of the brains, and grown-ups use all sorts of words to describe it. And you know that there's no right and wrong. One of the science names for this particular part of the brain is the amygdala, so that's the word that we use. Okay, and it helped the caveman react when he was in real danger. When cavemen were around, there was lots of danger. There was all sorts of creatures that could gobble you up, and you had to be on the lookout all the time. The really clever thing that sent the messages to the brain were our senses, which we all have. There's sight, touch, smell, taste, and hearing. Actually, there's a few more, but they're a bit more complicated. So we're going to do another book about them one day. We're going to stick to the 5 that we know at the moment, because when we're little, we just really learn about the 5. So these senses were really important because they got a feel of what was going on in the world, and they still do. So what would happen is the senses would feel a feel. They might hear a creature, or they might see a creature, or they might smell a creature, and that would send lots of chemicals around the body. One of them is called adrenaline, and we have a little adrenaline plushie here, and that sent messages using these funky things. These are neurons. They sent messages to the brain, and that sent our body into what we call a response state, and that is around fight, flight, and freeze. So we're either going to react in a fight way to the threat, so the creature, or we're going to act in a flight way to the creature, which we might run away, or we might freeze. So we might sort of go ooh, and that can be a bit tricky sometimes, because that's not helpful in making a decision. Sometimes it can keep us safe. So it's a bit confusing and a bit tricky. So for caveman, this was brilliant, because this really gave them a good early warning system. The problem we've got now is that there's less creatures. So we have this system that hasn't got much to do. So it's made itself very, very busy, reacting to things that don't feel great, but aren't actually the same sort of threat that we would have had if we were a caveman. So some of the threats that people react to nowadays are loud noises. You don't like loud noises, do you? And not understanding things. You know, can get a bit grumpy in class if you don't understand something and people are asking you questions. People being mean, people shouting, homework. I'm 51 and I still struggle with homework. Friendships are complicated. I find friendships very complicated. Do you? Yeah, I don't always know what people mean, and when I say something back, I don't always know if I've done it right, and I can't always tell from people's faces whether I have got it right or not, so that gets a bit confusing. So there's all these things and they rush around the brain, these neurons, and they set the chemicals, and they all set each other off, and then they all sort of run around the brain, not really doing things in the way that is most helpful, but they are doing things in the way that they are designed for. Okay. So Tam just sits, and what Hetty says to him is, you know, were you in any danger when you felt cross? And he said, do you know what? I really wasn't in any danger when I felt cross. I just felt cross, and it didn't feel nice. So, you know, what he had was a flight response. He had run. But he took his big feel with him. He wasn't really getting away from it. If it had been a creature, he would have got away from it, but he couldn't because it was inside him. Tam feels much better. You know, someone's sitting with him. She just sits gently with him and he feels very close to her. And what she says is that, you know, she would like him to go home and draw his own caveman and have a think about some of the things that make him feel, and so that he can start to get an idea of what he's reacting to. And she offers, he'd like to come and see her again, and he's very happy about that. So he'd quite like to go and see her again and talk some more about the brain science. And then we have this little bit, okay? So Tam, which is our little boy's name, it actually stands for the amazing me, because we're all really, really unique and we're all so important. So this book is called Tam's Journey, but actually what it is all of our journeys. Every single journey is different. And it's quite interesting to understand just how different we are. So these guys, these neurons, each of us have more than 80 billion of these in our head. Not this big, okay? They're actually really, really tiny, and that's what they look like under a microscope. And they all fire off bits of information, so much information that we can learn and understand things in up to 1 trillion different ways, okay? Now, on the planet, there's just over 7.7 billion people. So if there's 7.7 billion people and over 80 billion ones of these in our head, with many billions of ways of adding up information, that means that there is no one in the world that is going to feel the same feels as you and have the same experience as you. That's really difficult when we go to school and we live in a society where we have to stick to some rules, and life can get very complicated, can't it? Yeah. And you can feel a little bit different. Does that can feel a bit lonely? Yeah, it can feel a bit lonely sometimes, and it can do all sorts of things to your body. Okay, actually some of those feels can create real big sensations in our body. And that, so our next book, this one, that has a little look at some of the feels in our body. So when Tam goes back to see Hetty again, he has a bit more of an adventure. So he wakes up and he's full of the brain and thinking about all these wonderful things that he's learned about the brain, and he's absolutely fascinated. Actually, his mind is a little bit blown because he's a bit, wow, I did not know this about my brain, and I did not know it was okay to feel and that it was normal, and I did not know that it was okay to be just me and have those feelings and emotions. So he had noticed some things going on, so he decided that he's going to pop out and see Hetty again, because he's getting some feels. You see, he's getting some physical feels. He's getting some tummy aches, and he's getting some little wobbly legs, and his face is going really, really red. And you know, and he was able to recognise that some of the things that made him feel the big feels was, you know, watching the news. And at the moment, that's quite scary. It feels a big threat, doesn't it? Watching the news and people being poorly. Yeah, people being unwell, mum or dad being sad, you know. Some of our parents are a little bit wobbly at the moment. Some of us are fine. People being unkind, unknowns, not knowing what's going to happen next. Okay. And these are different for everybody, so these are just some examples. So he set off in the woods again, and this time, because he was calm, he was able to really enjoy the nature in the woods. He could see the flowers and smell them. He could see the birds and listen to the lovely music. So his senses were starting to pick up on things that were nice and calming. And he knew Hetty would take a long time to come down this time because he figured out how slow she was. So he took a snack and he sat under the tree, and he ate his snack and he waited for her. And there she was, all ready for him, hanging upside down.
Hanging out.
Hanging out, yeah, okay. So this time, so obviously Tam tells her, you know, he's got tummy aches, he's got headaches, he's not really sure what's going on. So she says, this time I'll explain to you how the body gets these feels now. And she told him some more about his body. So what she said was that when the brain and the senses do their thing, do their reaction thing, and we get the feels and they race around the body, it can do things to body parts, you know, and that can create physical feels. So our lungs take in more oxygen and our heart beats faster. And because of that, the body can feel a little bit differently. Sometimes we can get tummy aches and feel a little bit sick. I need the toilet. I worry about the toilet when I get anxious or nervous. And that's a very normal feeling because it's how the oxygen and the blood work in the body. It changes when we're reacting and it can make our feels feel different. Okay. We get a whole range of feelings in the way that the heart and the lungs and the tummy interact with the brain, and we can get wobbly legs and butterflies feelings and fluttery in the chest. Sometimes you get a fluttery feeling here in the chest, and sometimes your heart can feel really loud in your ears, and if you don't like noise, that can be a little bit worrying, and the breathing can be a little different. Sometimes we get a little bit
You blow.
Breathing funny. I blow, I walk around going see, so my body's trying to naturally adjust, but my family can hear because I'm blowing. And then she explains how that's the normal part of the body's reaction when we're engaged in the fight and flight process, and how that's absolutely okay. Sometimes the fear about the feelings makes the feelings bigger. And because this is natural, this is what our body's designed to do, what she starts to get them to understand is that sometimes just acknowledging those feelings, saying, all right, well, I can feel you're there, but I know I'm not in any danger, so I'm just going to let you sit there for a little while. And that can take some of it away, rather than feeling, oh gosh, because then we get a bigger feel because we're worrying about the feel. And this time Tam he's more aware of what time it is, he's able to get home at a decent time, and he's starting to be able to enjoy the nice sunset and the forest, and he heads himself off home in a much calmer state, ready to come back and talk to Hetty again about some of the things he can do to distract these and create different feels at the same time. And that's what our next book's going to be about. And our journey is that we're going to keep doing books, and we're going to keep having conversations with children, and we love to hear what children have to say to us, because it's really interesting.
Yeah.
And what I like about the book in the middle is the reason we chose a sloth is because sloths have been around longer than many other animals. Their evolution is actually fascinating, and we're very lucky that there's a lady and she runs a conservation foundation called the Sloth Conservation Foundation, and she is a doctor and she's written in National Geographic, and her name is Dr. Rebecca Cliff, and she's written us a couple of pages of sloth facts so that we can understand what fascinating creatures they are and how their ability to slow and be calm and measured in what they do has meant that they have survived longer than many other animals, and it's how they've adapted. And I really like that idea of learning how that slowness can be adapted to help us feel much calmer and much more settled in ourselves, while still being okay with having a bad day, or, you know, having a feel that's not particularly comfortable, especially fear. You know, I get quite nervous about doing things like this because it's quite scary to put your face in front of lots of people and talk about the things that you know, because sometimes people don't agree with me, and I have to be okay with that. Okay, but I wouldn't have done it at one point because it was big and it was really scary. But we do it anyway, don't we, at the moment? Okay, so our website details are on here, and we have some really lovely activity sheets on there. So we've got this, you are amazing because, and I am amazing because, you know, colour them in, write your postman and I'm amazing because, or you are amazing because, to say your thank yous, or any of your other key workers. We've also got this chap. Now when I was a little girl, we had these dollies that you could colour in and cut out and put your little paper clothes on, and some of you will never have seen anything like this because you're too little, and some of your mummies will be going, oh, I had a comic that used to do that. So we've done one just because I like it, really. So I've just started colouring mine in, and you're colouring yours in at the moment, aren't you, Abby? And we're going to be posting that up on our Facebook page, so that everyone can see. And, you know, if you want to do some, there's colouring sheets on there as well. We'd love to see them. Go on the Tam's Journey Facebook page, get your parents to post your pictures, and then we'll send you a little message back, and that'd be lovely. Listen, I hope you've had a fantastic day. We've loved being here, and thoroughly enjoyed everybody else's slots, and we wish you all the very best. Take care.